This video is brought to you by the Professional Photographers of America. In just a moment, I'm going to tell you all about the exciting new format for their international photographic competition. Welcome back, everyone. In this video today, I'm going to break down for you the 10 best purchases that I have made over the course of my career. And during that career, I've gone from being a photojournalist to a commercial photographer with a little stint in the middle of shooting some weddings. So I've got a fair amount of experience photographing people. And so the items I'm going to give you today are things that I believe you will not regret purchasing if you work as a photographer and you photograph people, no matter sort of what you do. It may be that you photograph on location, and it may be that you photograph in your studio or in your home or all of the above, because sometimes that's what I do. And I've been doing this for well over 20 years. And as always, I'm going to link to all of the gear in the description. So if you could click on those links, it would really help me out and support me as I make more videos like this one. So the first thing that I want to talk about today are painted backdrops. I bought my first gravity backdrop in about 2017. And at the time, it was the most expensive thing that I ever bought that didn't plug in the wall. And it was sort of a big leap of faith for me because I wasn't really sure if it would work out. But guess what? It was one of the best purchases that I made. I bought a double-sided backdrop back then for about $600, gray on one side and green on the other, size medium if you were wanting that information as well. And I've been able to use that backdrop for years in all sorts of situations, in corporate environments and on some of my model shoots and actor headshot shoots. If I was still a wedding photographer, I'm sure I would have figured out a way to integrate that background into a wedding shot at some point of time. Another thing that's been really helpful on set when I was photographing models or business people or anyone was a boom. And so for a number of years, I think about 15, I've owned an Avenger D600 boom. And this just goes on the top of any light stand, and it allows you to get your light out there about 6 feet or around about 2 meters away from the light stand. And so this can come in handy all the time, whether it's for a main light or a hair light, but it's something that I've never regretted purchasing. But if I had it all to do over again, I might have purchased this Cupo boom because it has 6 flat sides at the end and it will keep your light from spinning when you've got it boomed out there. So that might be something that you want to check out as well. Now, when I got that D600 for the first time, I think in about 2008 or 2007, I realized rather quickly that the aluminum or aluminium stands, if you will, wasn't exactly built to hold a boom and something as heavy as the D600. And so when I would put it on top of my Manfrotto light stand, they would always sort of lean over to the side. And I could tell that something very bad was going to happen one day. And so I broke down and purchased a C-stand. But before that point in time, I always said to myself, you know, I don't really need to own one of those C-stands. That's for an indoor photographer. And I somehow am better than that because I'm an outdoor photographer or a location photographer. But not buying a C-stand was a big mistake that I made over the course of my career, which of course then I rectified about 15 years ago. The other thing that I used, that has never been something that I regretted buying, was a light meter. And it's probably the thing that I've owned the longest and still use on occasion, and that's a Sekonic L308B. I bought this probably back in the late 90s when I first started using lights. They were White Lightning 10,000s, not the best purchase, by the way. However, the light meter is something that I've used almost my entire career. And a light meter is great for you getting results that are repeatable between different situations. So you might find that you really like a particular combination where your main light is a certain brightness, your hair light is a certain brightness, maybe your fill light is a certain brightness. And you might want to repeat that over and over and over again. And that's what a light meter is great for. Another thing is maybe you photograph corporate headshots and maybe you do that in different locations. Well, a light meter will help you do that as well, because you'll be able to get the exact same lighting in 2 different offices on 2 different days, and they'll all match. And that's very important as a commercial photographer. Another thing that I do, and another way that I use the light meter, is during my model shoots in order to get sort of ballparked, and then I go through and adjust each light by eye. to get the look that I'm going for. And so it really speeds up my workflow. One of the very important things is getting that gear to the location. And the very minimum, what I've done is I've put my lights and other accessories in a Pelican case. Back when I was actually a Pelican storm case. Back when I was a photojournalist, I would use storm cases in order to store all of my cameras and lenses and grip arms and all of the things that I needed to do my job and fly on location and shoot sports events or political events and that sort of thing. Then as I started being more of a commercial photographer, I transitioned those cases over from holding really big lenses to holding a number of lights and accessories. And that's really why I never have regretted purchasing these, because even though they cost maybe $300 to $500 each, and I have several different sizes, they've been something that I've just been able to continue using over the years, regardless of the type of equipment that I've purchased. I'm sure that back in the early 2000s, when I bought many of them, I never thought that I'd be using LED mono lights from Nanlite and storing them in one of them, because of course those lights never existed. But no matter, they didn't exist back then, but no matter where technology evolves and where our gear goes and where we as photographers evolve, these cases will be able to stand the test of time and evolve with us as we go. So that's why I've never regretted purchasing them. But before we move on, I just wanted to take a moment to tell you about the Professional Photographers of America's new format for their International Photographic Competition, IPC. During this contest, you'll be able to pit your images against the toughest competitors in the photographic industry as you vie to win $26,000 in cash prizes. And if that wasn't exciting enough, you'll be able to see the finalists' images judged head-to-head live at Imaging USA, where, by the way, I will also be teaching a pre-con class on fashion photography if you want to check that out as well. But more about IPC. There are 16 categories that you can enter, and awards will be given to the top 32 images in each category. In order to compete, you must be a member of PPA. So if you're not already a member, please click on the link in the description for a special discount on your membership. IPC registration runs through September 5th, so don't waste a moment to enter this exciting competition. Another thing that I use in order to get my gear on location is this SKB Golf Club case. And this has been a staple in my gear collection for years. It may even be almost as old as the light meter that I use. One good thing about SKB cases is they have a lifetime warranty. So I guess what I should have said is the current one that I own might be from 10 or 12 years ago, but I'm sure I had one before then that ended up breaking, and they ended up replacing it. And they also ended up replacing a handle over time, and I think a latch over time, and then a wheel over time. And I actually need to contact them soon in order to get them to replace a hinge. But the good thing about this company is that they really stand by their product, and they support photographers and other professionals moving their gear. And so it really is a great product that you can purchase. And the third thing that I want to mention that's all about getting your gear onto location is a RocknRoller Multi-Cart. And I've owned one for maybe the last 10 or so years. The great thing about them is they fold up really small. And so whether you have a car or an SUV, you'll be able to load in all your gear and then just add this cart on top, and it doesn't take up a lot of space. And so you'll be able to get it on location, unfold it, put all your gear on it, and as they say, move it all in one trip. They also sell top shelves that you can put on the top, and it gives you another surface in which to stack gear, but it also gives you sort of a table that you can use on location. And during commercial shoots, I have used my cart not only to move my gear into the location, but I've also used it as sort of my tethering station, where I've got my laptop and my monitor and my camera and all of those things sitting there on top. So it's a very great purchase and something that you can use throughout the years. And relatively speaking, it doesn't actually cost that much. And speaking of the monitor that I just mentioned, I purchased this Hewlett-Packard Z27X monitor maybe 15 years ago. And I used it on my desk for a number of years until I got the Mac Studio last year. And then I ended up getting 2 matching BenQ monitors. And now I use this Z27X at my studio in order to monitor sort of when I'm shooting behind the scenes videos, but mainly to tether to during workshops and to tether to during commercial shoots so that an art director can see what I'm doing on a much larger screen than they could see on my laptop. And I think this is really a great piece of equipment that you can use for a number of years. You can either use it at your desk, you can use it on location with clients, and it just keeps on going and going and going. And the great thing about the Mac Studio now that's come out is that we'll be able to use the monitors that are on our desk for a very long time, and we'll just swap out the computer until at least we end up using 8K monitors. But I've been using this 4K monitor for, well, maybe it's not 4K, maybe it's actually 2500. But I was able to use this monitor for a very, very long time. So a monitor is a great purchase. And once you have the monitor on your desk, you need to calibrate it some sort of way. So using a Calibrate ColorChecker display like this one is pretty much an essential purchase because you'll be able to make sure that your monitor is giving you correct and accurate color. That way you'll be able to produce images professionally and deliver those images to your clients and not have to worry about whether or not you are seeing the right thing on your monitor. It'll give you that peace of mind and let you do a professional job at the same time. And that's a piece of gear that you'll be able to use for several years, at least until they decide that USB-C is no longer a cable type that we're supposed to use. The last and final thing that I want to talk about is a tripod. And some of you just rolled your eyes even harder than you did when I mentioned the light meter. I know that a lot of people are light meter resistant and a lot of people are tripod resistant. I was very, very tripod resistant. I believed that I could just hold the camera and I could move around and I could see the shot and I could develop it. And if I used this tripod, I would be stuck. But even when I had that viewpoint, I still needed a tripod from time to time to shoot long exposures. I would have the random client that would ask me to take a photo of a room or a building or that sort of thing. Even though those aren't things that I would typically do, the tripod would always come in handy. So if you get one like the Gitzo one that I have, you'll be able to use it for a number of years. And really the brand doesn't necessarily matter. Also, just so you know, over time, I started realizing that when the R5 came out, that if I used a tripod and I used the level inside the camera, then all of my shots would be level and I wouldn't have to waste time in post getting those straightened out. I also wouldn't have to worry about situations where I randomly wobbled to one side or the other and I went off the background, which then meant that before I prepared my client gallery, I had to go through there and I had to crop those photos in order to make them look good. So I didn't feel embarrassed. And then that just added more and more and more time to my workflow. And so that's why I started using a tripod so that I could just batch crop all my images if necessary, if I had to crop them at all. But I would be dialed in and things would look really good. Because when you're photographing people, as long as you're loose left to right on the head, you're fine. You normally are not panning up and down during the shot, and you certainly aren't panning on this axis. In fact, you shouldn't, because then you'd end up crooked and you'd have to straighten it. So even if you're tripod resistant right now, well, maybe give it a chance, because it might be better than you think, even though you're feeling like, oh, it's going to be like a straitjacket. It's not that bad. It will be fine. The other good thing is, if you're using a tripod, you'll never have to worry about dropping the camera, even though I've only done that once or twice. Knock on. The wood is too far away for me to knock on it, but just know that I should. And using a tripod actually led to me using a camera stand, because it was far easier for me to have a monitor on one side and a tripod head on the other, and everything going up and down on the same pole and moving around on the floor. So I actually love my camera stands from Studio Titan. It's just that I didn't include it in the list today because I wanted to focus on the idea that these were items that you could purchase as a people photographer, and it wouldn't matter if you were on location or in your studio. But if you're only in your studio, a camera stand is a great purchase as well. And if you guys could do me one favor, if you could write in the comments if you think that there's anything that I missed, because then we could share that information with the other photographers watching this video, and I'm sure that there is some essential gear that you might be interested in having as a people photographer that I've missed. If you could please like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. If you're not already a member of PPA, remember to click on the link in the description to get a discount on your membership. And make sure that you enter this year's International Photographic Competition and join me in Louisville, Kentucky to watch the judging live at Imaging USA. Thank you so much for your time. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.